Hi there, welcome to the Fierce Factor podcast. I'm your host, Kaylee Lindholm. And I think it's time for us women to shift the conversation in business and step into our feminine leadership to do the most iconic work the aesthetic industry has ever seen. Each week, I'll be bringing a powerful dose of strategy, sarcasm, solutions, and sass that will rev up your creativity and ignite your brilliance as you link arms with me along our shared path of personal and professional growth in 20 minutes or less. Let's go. Hello, leader. Welcome back to the Fierce Factor podcast and to episode number 301. Wow, can you believe it's already 2026? Holy cow. Well, I'm not the big New Year's resolution girl. The turn of the year really does feel like a new opportunity to, turn the page and set new intentions. And I really do look back and reflect on wins. I remind myself of progress and recalibrate in areas that I'd like to improve. Most consistently, typically around refining my schedule and my priorities. And I highly recommend taking some time to do this if you haven't. I'm talking as simple as even scrolling through the Photos app on your phone and just looking at highlights from each month to remind yourself of everything you did, the memories you created, the work you put into getting where you are now. I find that this is just such an overlooked part of forward momentum, especially for us as high achieving women. We're so innately programmed to reach and achieve our goals and then move our target only to habitually feel like we aren't there yet. But what's counterintuitive about growth is that you rarely grow in a healthy way from a place of insufficiency or feeling like you're not enough. When you build from a state of abundance, growth feels easier, feels more aligned, and truly feels more joyful. And this was a growth year for sure, but the primary focus was scale infrastructure for us, meaning every single decision hinged on the question, is this scalable? So in many ways, that meant me building better systems to support and bring in even more value to our clients. Here's some of the things that we accomplished as a company this past year. We restructured every role in the company to include newly assigned responsibilities, job descriptions, and comp plans. We promoted 3 employees, including one into a brand new role, a director of client experience. We hired a vice president of operations. We launched the KLC agency inside of our Pop Leadership Academy, our secret menu, if you will, of services that include 8 different virtual and in-person team trainings, private coaching intensives, and live events. We rolled out the CEO scorecard, our proprietary coaching measurement system that is built and designed to help our clients track their progress across each milestone in our academy, visibly measure their implementation, and stay strategically prioritized as they build their business. We added a level 3 to our Pop Leadership Academy that's exclusive for $5 million annual revenue earning founders. And a defining moment for us came from collaborating with New York Times bestselling author Sahil Bloom to host a life building workshop at the Alt Experience. P.S. That is coming up again this April. If you are not signed up, get signed up. We have not that many seats available to that. Anyway, side note. But that was where our clients explored really a deeper definition of success and work that ultimately shaped the Life First Business operating system and dashboard that we will be launching inside of our academy this month. And finally, we crossed our next $1 million milestone. So I couldn't be more proud of the work my team and I accomplished this year. But I'll be honest, it was not a smooth sailing, easy year. It was tough. It was a year of pivots, of realignments, of failures, and hard conversations. It was a lot of change for our team, bringing in a new boss for them to report to and an entirely new operating system. And it was the biggest leadership growth year I've had in my 10 years of building this company amidst a monumentally shifting industry. So I'd be lying if I said I slept well. And I'd be lying if I said I wasn't to my breaking point. It was a year of compression, really. We saw wellness surge across our industry. Private equity consolidation pushed many founders to the margins, capitalizing on tired business founders who were ready to throw in the towel. We saw rapid AI advancement accelerate both innovation and amplify a lot of external noise out there. And at the same time, economic pressure from inflation and tariff uncertainty created a slower, more cautious consumer, one that forced businesses to operate with a greater intention and discipline. So truly, it forced discernment. And this year began to expose cracks in weak systems, and it quietly prepared the strongest operators for what comes next. So this climate set the stage for the outlook of 2026. And stepping into this year, it doesn't feel explosive. It feels earned. It feels strategic, and it feels deeply human to me. You know, consumers didn't stop spending, but they did stop spending carelessly. Aesthetics didn't slow. It just matured. It is shape shifted. And the COVID tailwind is officially gone, and strategic growth is going to be the only way now, because we're entering an era of intentional consumerism where, you know, people are asking, is this worth it? Can I trust this brand? Do I feel seen here? And is this aligned with who I'm becoming? They're thinking about their values. This is the era where great brands will win and win big. And the beautiful news for the founders who have been working with us inside of our Pop Leadership Academy and planting deeply rooted infrastructure is that this is going to be an incredible separation season for them, because this year is all about the return to intention, integrity, and human-centered growth. So this week, I wanted to take a moment to pause and anticipate what it's going to take to be a successful female founder in aesthetics and wellness this year. So here are my top 10 predictions for our industry and for consumerism and business leaders in 2026. Number one is that retention becomes the number one KPI, not revenue growth. So over the last year, what I noticed with our company and also with our strongest clients is that growth hasn't come from chasing more and more customers. It's really come from the ones who have stayed in a season where consumers are more cautious and more selective. Loyalty has become incredibly meaningful, and this is the source of lucrative referrals. Let me be clear, when somebody keeps showing up, they keep booking, they keep trusting your recommendations, it means they feel taken care of. They feel confident in who they're working with. And in this climate, that trust is gold. Think about it. When you continue to build alongside clients and patients who trust you, growth stops feeling like something you have to push for, and it starts feeling like something that naturally builds on itself and drives deeper value for everyone. So it's all about retention. Prediction number two is the rise of the client experience role. Top practices will add or formalize a role whose primary job is relationship depth. So we're talking about client check-ins, white glove follow-ups, loyalty, surprise and delight moments, emotional continuity of care, product replenishment, hand-holding through the clinical care plan. This is a dedicated resource who is building a strategic process for client support, essentially systematizing your most critical KPI, rebooking. Why this role will be critical comes down to human behavior and economics. Research consistently shows that acquiring a new customer costs anywhere from 5 to 7 times more than retaining an existing one. And even more compelling than that, a 5% increase in retention can drive profit growth of 25 to 95%. So we're talking about repeat clients who are also spending significantly more over time and are far more likely to follow through on long-term care plans when they feel supported. On the human side, studies show that consumers are dramatically more likely to buy and rebuy when they feel recognized, valued, and personally cared for, not marketed to. In an AI-obsessed world where attention is fragmented and trust is harder to earn, having a dedicated role focused on relationship ownership increases rebooking rates, it improves plan compliance, and it deepens loyalty. So this is a revenue protecting, outcome driving role that directly impacts the long-term health of the practice and becomes your competitive advantage to a less resourced competitor investing in loud marketing and price gauging. Prediction number 3 is that consumers will pay more, but only for what feels personal. The era of luxury being defined by price point is over. High end in 2026 looks like very different. Remembering names, remembering preferences, feeling anticipated, feeling known. One of the biggest shifts I'm seeing is demand for personal experiences. In 2026, luxury won't be defined by how expensive something is, but by how it makes someone feel. Being remembered, having their preferences noted, walking into a space where you feel anticipated, personalized. You know that feeling that signals value to you because you're being seen as a real human. When a client feels known, they relax, they trust, and they commit more deeply. So high ticket services will absolutely continue to sell, but only when delivered with intention, care, and a level of personalization and professionalism that makes the experience feel genuinely special. I had a call just this last week with a client of KLC who, really crystallizes for me. And she was saying how impactful being in our academy has been, but she wasn't talking about, her pricing or results or, anything about that. She was talking about how good it felt that someone on the team remembered why she started, checked in to see how she was doing before she had to ask, and, anticipated what she needed next without making her feel sold to. And that's when it clicked. People aren't paying more for the service. They're paying for how personal the experience feels. In 2026, luxury looks like being known. And when clients feel that level of care and intention, then high ticket and high value decisions, they feel very natural and they feel empowered. Prediction number 4, AI will separate thoughtful leaders from shortcut seekers. The smartest founders won't use AI to replace connection. They'll use it to protect it. So what I'm seeing with AI is really clear divide starting to form, where the strongest leaders are leveraging AI for insight, for clarity, for strategic reminders to follow up and check in with patients, for seamless charting during patient visits, so that when a human shows up, providers can actually sit down and be present, make eye contact, listen. So top brands will use AI to help them think more creatively, not to replace their marketing voice and critical thinking skills. It will help them stay more organized and detailed, but not become a crutch for providing value. I hear a lot of companies and a lot of consultants out there saying you can save time doing, all these bots and all this stuff. And I just think cutting human touch to save time will quietly erode trust. And what worries me isn't really AI itself. It's watching some businesses outsource their thinking, their voice, their care to it. And that's where the gap widens. The great brands will use AI to support humans, not to replace them. And that difference will be obvious to consumers. Prediction number 5, the brands that win will be bravely specific. And we've talked about this for a long time, but you see it more and more now as we see commoditization in pretty much every aesthetic and wellness service that's available. Mass appeal is dying. If you haven't noticed, anyone can say they do what you do. Believe me, this has been the year of copycats for KLC. Category of one positioning with a proprietary aesthetic method is rising and it's critical. And so what we're going to see in 2026 is favoritism for the brands that say we're not for everyone, and that's intentional. This is who we serve best. This is how we do it differently. This is who we're not for. Here's what you can expect specifically when you come to work with us. So a great example of this is Bearskin Marin and the way they've anchored their brand around their skin to structure method. When a patient calls in, naming what the practice is known for, not a generic facial or injectable procedure or questions about procedure pricing, but they're asking about a specific outcome and philosophy. the buying decision has essentially already been made. So the conversation is just about which pathway, which approach, and am I the right candidate for that? So that level of clarity attracts a more aligned, a higher intent patient who isn't price shopping, they're outcome shopping. So this is where branding becomes the conduit to sales. When consumers understand exactly what you stand for and what they'll receive with you, trust is established before the first visit, confidence is strong, and premium pricing feels justified because the experience and results are already clearly defined. Prediction number 6 is regenerative and preventative wellness will overtake reactive care. So the consumer mindset is shifting from fix me to sustain me. You hear more language about root cause medicine and healthcare versus sick care and things like that in general. One of the biggest shifts I'm noticing is that people aren't coming in asking to fix a problem anymore. They're asking how to feel better for longer. So the questions sound different now. It's less about quick corrections and more about sustainability, energy balance, and longevity. And that's why we're seeing so much momentum around hormone optimization, regenerative medicine, nervous system regulation, and preventative aesthetics. So consumers are thinking in chapters, not in moments. They want care that supports how they live, how they age, and how they show up in their lives. I remember listening to Peter Attia when Oprah first interviewed him, and he was saying, you need to train for your last decade of life. And I was like, this guy's crazy. I can't think about that right now. And here I am, 2025, I started doing mobility. And that's been like one of my, one of the things I'm most proud of for myself is my hip mobility. Oh my gosh, I'm aging myself here. In 2026, the practices that lead with prevention and long-term wellness won't just be ahead of the curve. They're going to be aligned with how people actually want to live and how consumers are investing in today's economy. So we can expect continued momentum in longevity-focused offerings, hormone optimization, regenerative medicine, nervous system regulation, and mental health and preventative aesthetics. People want to feel good longer, not just look better fast. Prediction number 7 is the middle will keep getting squeezed. So average practices are going to struggle, not because they don't have their pricing right, but because there's nothing memorable about them. And I've seen this really with a few clients this year when we started looking at their numbers and, beneath the surface, a trend we recognized with practices that were feeling stuck was an attrition gap, meaning of the patients who received treatment over the course of a year, a large percentage of them were not returning for additional services. We noticed rebooking rates hovering around 50 to 60%, and this is indicating that retention was inconsistent, and subsequently the lifetime value plateaued because nothing in the experience was compelling enough to bring and pull people back in. So contrast that with the practices in our academy that invested in our white glove experience training. They tightened their client experience operations and elevated how clients felt and experienced their treatment. They noticed their rebooking climb into the 75 to 85% range. Retention stabilized and lifetime value increased simply because customers stayed longer and followed through on their treatment plan. So this is the squeeze I'm talking about. In 2026, average experiences will silently deteriorate practices. Think about a forgettable experience at a restaurant. You're likely to never go back, probably not call them and tell them your experience wasn't that great. And if your friends ask you about it, you'll tell them it was okay, but I'd try something different next time. It's an insidious cost that average businesses will overlook and by result will spend twice as much then or 5 to 7 times as much on new patient acquisition. The brands that win will be the ones who pair operational excellence with emotional resonance because that combination directly moves the 3 KPIs that matter most in 2026. We're talking about this in our academy: retention, rebooking, and lifetime value. So this year, you're either intentional or you're forgettable. Prediction number 8, strategic investment will replace reactive spending. Long gone are the days of trying new tactic after new tactic to see what sticks. This year, the strongest practices are changing how they make decisions with their money. Instead of reacting out of pressure or urgency, they're pausing. They're slowing hiring until roles are truly needed, being more intentional about expansion, and asking better questions before launching anything new. They're investing in strategic advisory, leadership coaching, and mentorship to help guide them optimally. The impulse decisions are the ones that become expensive later, scrambling to make a decision versus working the strategic plan. So well-structured investments will create stability, clarity, and momentum. In 2026, capital discipline isn't about playing it small, it's about leading well. So the most successful founders will pause before hiring, slow before expanding, ask better questions before launching new devices, technology, and services, and they'll be making grounded decisions rooted in discipline and strategic guidance. Prediction number 9 is trust will become the most valuable currency. This year, trust is quietly becoming the most valuable currency in business. With more noise, more automation, and more AI-generated everything, people are gravitating toward what feels real and familiar, and they're chasing brands that they recognize, leaders who show up consistently, and businesses that are transparent about who they are and how they operate. So authority isn't something you can just claim in this environment. It's something that you're going to have to earn over time through presence, through consistency, through integrity, and in the follow-through. In 2026, the practices that rise and are the most successful, they're not going to be the loudest or the flashiest. They're actually going to be the ones that feel steady, honest, and deeply trustworthy. So consumers will be choosing familiar faces, transparent brands, leaders who show up consistently and honestly, and personal brands rooted in authenticity, not attaching themselves to brand partners for money, fame, or status. And authority is going to be earned. So everyday brands doing exceptional work are going to be winners. And finally, prediction number 10, the most profitable practices will feel the most human. I think this is a big theme here. What feels so clear to me heading into 2026 is this paradox that as our systems get smarter and more efficient, the practices that will be the most profitable are the ones who are going to feel like the opposite of that. People actually aren't craving more speed or automation. They're craving significance. They want to feel seen, remembered, and genuinely cared for in a world that often feels rushed and transactional. Staying focused on this human-centric care, you will quietly outperform everyone else because trust, loyalty, and connection will always compound. As systems get smarter, human warmth becomes the differentiator. So the practices that feel personal and grounded and relational, regardless of the services they offer, will quietly outperform. So here's the truth. 2026 isn't about moving faster. It's about moving with intention. This is the year where strategy outperforms hustle, and businesses built on trust, they get rewarded. At KLC, this is the work we've been doing for years. We've helped hundreds of founders navigate inflection points like this one across multiple economic cycles, building businesses that don't just grow, but they endure. What we know for sure is this: real momentum is created quietly, brick by brick, through disciplined leadership, clear strategy, and human-centered execution. So if you felt like you've been doing the deep work while others chase shortcuts, if you've been building foundations and not chasing the trends, this may not just be your next year. This might be your era, and we're here for it. Okay, leader, thanks for joining me for this kickoff of 2026. I hope we get the chance to lock arms this year and redefine what success looks like for you for good. Please share this episode with one colleague to help advance our shared mission of elevating this incredible industry. And I will chat with you same place, same time next week.
Listen, leader, if you're vibing with me here, hang tight because I have a brand new resource for you. You are a successful, confident, powerful woman who just isn't into being average. No, you have a calling, and part of that calling is requiring you to level up. And I know that if you're working across the next $1 million milestone in your business, you need to be in the right circles. And perhaps that's why you found us. I'd love to invite you to join The Blueprint, a weekly resource for inspired, provocative thinkers who are taking this conversation to the next level. Get access to free business tools, podcast supplements, guideposts, and direct communication with me and my expert team. And of course, a masterfully curated circle of women making big moves and disrupting the status quo in aesthetics and wellness. You can link directly through the show notes or head to klcconsultants.com/blueprint. It's time to elevate. See you there, goddess.